Happy Spiritual Sunday! Woo, we're back. Okay, nice to be back. Okay, so I want to start off once again. Karen's giving us a message from her book, Finding the Light Through the Darkness. So I open up to this. In the biblical portion of Lech Lecha, the Creator tells Abraham to leave his home, yet does not inform him on where to go. If God were directing Abraham to move, why would God not also tell him where he should go? Spiritually, every human being is internally connected to his or her next level, with a deep knowing of where he or she is meant to go in this life. Although the light is ever present for us, if a person is stuck or tied to something and unable to let go, it is up to the individual to look inside and figure out what the next step needs to be. This is why the sages of Kabbalah tell us that there can be no coercion in spirituality. For us to earn the light, the decision has to be our own. We are each responsible for taking action and forging direction in our lives. The question is, if the Creator doesn't tell us where to go, then how do we know how to get to the next level? When we know that we can do something more than we are doing now, and then a door opens up for us, we know this is the door we are meant to walk through. God is always there, knocking on our door, telling us to go to another level and become more than who we are. Are we listening, or are we limiting ourselves, staying at a place that may not be the best for us, but it is comfortable? Okay. So, very apropos to today. So let me start by getting you outside your comfort zone. So how do we get uncomfortable? 1 + 1 is 3. No? Why don't you believe it? Oh, we know better. Okay. So let's delve a little bit into what we've learned in Kabbalah 1. Kabbalah 1 teaches us there are 2 realms of existence, yes? Do you believe you have a body and a soul, or just a body? We have both. Therefore, if we have both a body and a soul, we live in 2 realms. We live in the realm connected to the body. We live in the realm connected to the soul. That's one level of our free choice. Which one are we going to listen to? So Kabbalistically, those of you who are familiar, we call it the 1% and the 99%. The 1% is the physical material world. It's where we find ourselves caught up in everything related with the body. 5 senses, time, space, and motion. And here comes another one, logic. Those are limitations, my friends. That's what the Kabbalists are teaching us. And if a person holds to that idea of time, space, and motion, 5 senses, idea of logic, then we are stuck, as Karen was just saying, we are stuck in that which is comfortable, and more so, we are stuck in a limited, very dissatisfying life. But there's that other realm, the realm of our soul. The realm of our soul is the realm called the 99%. It is unlimited. It transcends time, space, and motion. It goes beyond our 5 senses. And as those of you who have taken or remember Kabbalah 1, it's very illogical. So I hope I have you in some level of confusion, because without confusion, there's no growth. No growth. So, let me start with something simple, and then we'll work into the more deeper concepts. Have you ever walked out of your house, or you ever been in an experience where your logic is telling you to do X, Y, Z, whether it's in business, whether you're leaving the house, take the umbrella with you, something like that, right? So, okay, I take my umbrella. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you get this thought pops in your head. Do something the opposite. Do something the opposite, right? Your logic says you go to the business meeting, you're going to say X, Y, Z, and this, and all of a sudden you get that thought, says, you know what, just tell them off. Hello? I'm trying to do business with them. Why should I tell them off? But you keep getting that thought. We often call it our intuitive thought. 99.9 times out of 100, at the end of the story, after we've gone through the business meeting, after we spent our day, after we did whatever it was, which one is usually right? The logical thought or the illogical thought that comes from our intuition, or now we can understand from our soul? From the soul, the intuition. So we just said on a practical daily level, we have experienced the illogic and yet the transcendence and the beneficial aspect of the 99%. Not holding on to time, space, and motion, not holding on to our logic. Now, am I telling you to just be foolish, close your eyes, and walk across a busy street? Good, I'm glad you agree. No, I'm not telling you that. We have to understand, though, that our five senses are very limited. Think about it. You ever use a magnifying glass? Why? Because our five senses are limited, right? You ever seen or heard of, or maybe you have used, a microscope? Scientists have, wow, big discovery, microscope. We can see what we couldn't see with our eyes. So what are they telling us? They are acknowledging, but we are not consciously grasping what they're telling us. Our five senses are limited. So then when you think back, you ever had a bad relationship? Never. Any of you out there ever had a bad relationship? So tell me honestly, in that first beginning, the first day, the first week, the first month of that relationship, did you say, oh my goodness, they are horrible, they behave horrible, they look horrible, they act horrible, everything in the 1% in the physicality looks terrible, but I think I'll go in the relationship anyway? No, in the beginning of that relationship, everything looked great. You felt good, they talked to you good, you acted well, blah, 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 you go on and on and on. And then somewhere down the line, those five senses, you realize were fooling you. You didn't see who the person really was. You didn't see how they really behaved. You didn't see something beyond the five senses. And you can say that with a job. You can say that with friends. We can say that on everything in our life. We can say similar things. So we're coming to get a grasp that it's not just some far out Kabbalistic idea. Let's go beyond our five senses. Let's give up the logic, etc. We can see in what we've already experienced in our life the validation of that, the truth of that. So we want to now consciously work into listening to our soul. Let's reach into the 99% where there's all the solutions, the answers, etc. We have unlimited potential. But what does the five senses tell us? And most of you are familiar with this thing called the opponent. We have this parasite in our head that was placed there, go back to Kabbalah 1 and review, but is there essentially to give us free will and to be a safety net. When a person going too far off the path of the light, too far away from their predestined good, then it has to kick in and do a little nagging, needling, sometimes a little punching, right? Not so comfortable all the time, a little painful often. But it's there only in the 1% to help us not fall into our comfort of the 1%, but as Karen just said, as we read from the book, to go out of our comfort zone, to get to our next level, not to stay stuck where we are because of the illusion of comfort. Now, unlimited potential. We could say, okay, that opponent is telling me we can't achieve this, we can't do this, we're not smart enough for that, we're not capable, we're too old. Give us all the limitations. So again, even in the 1%, anyone ever heard of somebody, know somebody who has what's called photographic memory? Pretty amazing stuff, right? Someone else was just telling me that's what brought it to mind. I remember way back in one of the talk shows, probably back in the 70s, they had some guy who could literally flip through a New York City phone book and then recall every phone number, every address that was in that book. So we say, wow, an exception to the rule. Until you take Kabbalah 1. We learn if one human being has a capability, because we're all created by one God with one spiritual technology. So if there's somebody who can do things like that, or you hear the things, somebody in the moment of panic, they think they see somebody trapped under a car or things like that, and what happens? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes superhuman strength to lift the car off the person. Now, you ask most people, could you pick up, the front end of a car? No, impossible, until you hear these stories. So what the Kabbalists are helping us to understand, if one person can do it, we can all do, maybe not identical, but similarly beyond what we think is human nature type of things. So then as we're sitting here right now, anybody have a glimpse, an idea, a thought of something you would like to achieve, like to do? And I don't mean, sort of the fantasy type things, but something you really feel in your heart and soul that you could achieve, you could do, etc. And then comes that other thought, I'm not sure, I don't think I can, I'm not capable, look at what's going on in the world. Well, look, we were just talking here before we started, I remember it's over a year now since we started doing Spiritual Sunday only, when we were only doing it online because everything was shut down and this, and I did a few Spiritual Sundays around the coronavirus. What was the lessons? What was, the teachings? What could we see Kabbalistically, et cetera, right? It's a year now. So people were shut down. And if you look at just this experience, did every human being on earth who was locked down or limited by the coronavirus situation, did everybody just fall apart? Did everything disintegrate in everybody's life? There were a lot of people came up with new businesses, making a lot of money, come up with new ideas, new inventions, new things, happier and better off than they were before. So as we said in the beginning, there's the 1%, there's the 99%. Which one we live in, which one we experience our life from is up to us. It's not up to anyone else, it's in our hands. So think about, we want to be able to get to that 99% like a Moses. Think of some difficulty you're having right now. Some real heavy challenge, not just some minor annoyance. Now think of it as your Red Sea. Moses got to the Red Sea. He was trapped, as we say, literally between the rock and the hard place. He's got the Egyptian army coming behind. He's got wild animals on the side. And in his case, he also had all the people complaining. What did you do with us? Because in front of us is this huge Red Sea. Wild animals and the Egyptians coming to kill us or re-enslave us. Do you feel like that in your situation? Nowhere to go, overwhelmed, no solution, can't find a way out. So what did Moses do? Moses gave us an example, raising to the 99%. He just reached into his soul where the infinite light of God exists, and that infinite light of God can pierce through, and in that case, split the sea. And it's not just like some people say, because I know some of you may be a little less familiar with what Kabbalah teaches about the Bible, that it is true, but it also, more importantly, gives us lessons for 2021. So in this case, if you read literally, it's not like one part of the Bible says, well, it was a big wind blew and the waters parted. So you think, okay, low tide, right? We want to be logical again. It was low tide. Anyone ever seen low tide? You see pictures. Tide so low when there's a little drought going on and the boats, right, are almost with no water and they're leaning over and this because there's nothing to float them up. No, it says, even in the literal, they walked on dry ground. Dry ground. Now, you have low tide, there's still water, there's still mud. You even get rid of the water in the first few minutes, probably the first few hours, maybe in the first few days, there's still mud. In seconds, they walked on dry ground. Start thinking about what your dry ground is. Start thinking about what you want to achieve. Start thinking about what the opponent has been telling you is impossible, but your heart and soul has been telling you is possible. because that's where we want to go. Joshua stopped the sun. How did he do that? I mean, it's not like something within his grasp, right? If you and I are close to each other and you want to walk away, I guess physically, at least for a second, I could grab you and I could hold you, quote unquote, stop you from moving. But the sun is a little bit out of Joshua's reach. So how was he able? And if you'll even start Googling and start researching it, they say even astronomically, there was a glitch around the sun and daylight, et cetera, around that time. So again, there's some physical evidence that something unusual happened. So what did Joshua do? He did the same thing we can do. Accessed his soul. Once you access the soul, you have access to that 99% realm where the infinite light of God exists. There's no limitations to that. But there is a condition to get there. We can only access that 99%, or as Karen said, go to our next level, when we're willing to access our soul, to work with our soul, by using our heart of light. And I use it that way because if I just say using our heart, well, a lot of us think we use our heart a lot. We're kind people, nice people, good people. Go back to the relationship that went bad. In the beginning of the relationship, didn't you have heartfelt feelings? I love you so much. You're so wonderful. You're so great from the bottom of my heart. And then when it went rotten, what happened to that? The bottom of the heart suddenly became rocky, right? It became solid, cold-hearted, hard-hearted, etc., blocked. So that's why I want to make sure, yes, we access our soul's light through the heart of the light. Through the heart of the light. That true love, that true unity, that true oneness that we want to talk about. So therefore, Kabbalistic mathematics, topic of the day, 1 and 1 is 3, or more actually. How do we do that? How do we do that? So let me give you an example. What's the difference between an ounce of feathers and an ounce of gold? Okay, we could say the value, but you're talking now on the ounce, right? An ounce is an ounce. So an ounce of gold, an ounce of feathers, right? They're both an ounce. They will both balance a scale equally, yes? So from that point of view, what's the difference? Volume, right? You can have a little piece of gold that you could carry in your hand is an ounce. To have an ounce of feathers, you probably need hundreds or thousands of feathers to make an ounce. So the difference is really, let's call it the density or the intensity. So how did Joshua and Moses and all those great Kabbalists create those miracles? That they're showing us we can also. They're not showing us how special they are and we're just left behind. They're showing us what human potential is, or let's call it divine potential. So in the simplest level, what are they showing us? Me, an individual, and God can achieve anything. Me and God can achieve anything. Me and the light of my soul can achieve anything. Because the light in our soul is the same light of the Creator that created all the physical universe. So you and the light, when you work with it, can achieve everything that God already set out for you. All of your potential, all of your eternal bliss. Spiritual person is what? Not somebody who talks about being spiritual. Not somebody who can quote to you from holy spiritual books. A spiritual person is a person who's living in the density, or let's call it the intensity of the light. The spiritual person is the one who is bringing light to bear in a more intense way into their life, letting themselves be that channel of the light of the Creator. And how do we do that? Or let me just give you one more quote I found yesterday. From the Sfat Emet, one of the great Kabbalists of a few hundred years ago. And he puts it this way. We say, me and the light can do anything. He says it this way. The help from above is greater than any human power. So if you think of how powerful we've been humanly, we've got computers and spacecraft and all this other stuff. Think about it. The help from above is greater than that. So when we talk about a spiritual person, a truly spiritual person, what could Moses not do? Look at some of these stories. They could achieve everything. Why? Because they were like that ounce of gold. Yes, we could even say along these lines, more valuable. Meaning they went outside their comfort zone. They shine more light. The intensity of the light removes the darkness, the chaos, the limitations. And eventually, we could be even like Abraham. And isn't it funny? My teachers, the Rav and Karen, used to say Kabbalah is 50th century science, and the scientists now are in the 21st century. So if you read the Bible, there's a story that shows you, if you look inside it, Abraham teleported. Abraham the patriarch teleported from where he was living to go visit his nephew Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah. He teleported because Lot tells us that he saw his uncle Abraham, and that's what made him change his ways, not fall into all the negativity that was Sodom and Gomorrah. So let's say if you go back 10, 15 years ago and I tell you he teleported, what would most of us have said? Come on, we all know it's the Bible, and the Bible, they just make things up for whatever reason. Well, look, since the 21st century now, scientists are touching on teleportation. They can teleport an electron a microscopic distance, disappear in one place and appear in another place. So if the scientists could do that, why is it hard to believe that Abraham could teleport? And if we're already on the path and the thought that Abraham could teleport, what about you and I? Some of you might be teleporting right now, looking at me, and you're off in Hawaii, you're off somewhere else, right? Your mind is teleporting you. But you say to yourself, yeah, okay, Chaim, that's great, but that's only my mind. Sure, not because teleportation is impossible, but because we've allowed ourselves to be limited. We don't believe. Oh, sure, we can all believe because we're used to it, that our mind can teleport. I can go back in time to my, 15th birthday. I can move forward in time and imagine what I would love to have. But that's only with the mind. But if you took somebody out of space, you brought somebody from some other planet that didn't have that experience before, and you tell them, yes, even though I'm right here in front of you, I'm also in Hawaii. I'm also back in my 15th birthday. I'm also somewhere else. What would they say? They think you're cuckoo. So when we were told, yes, Abraham teleported, we said, cuckoo. Well, today, what was cuckoo back then is now scientific fact. So why should we be waiting for things to happen like that? Why do we want to wait for the scientists to catch up 3,000 years while we sit and stew in chaos and negativity and difficulty? I'm just looking to see who doesn't have any difficulty. Anybody out there? No difficulty? Okay. So the help from above is greater than any human help. How do we get there? Let me ask you this. Anyone here ever had an experience? Like something miraculous? You had something out of the ordinary? Something that was, quote, relative to you, superhuman? So we don't even have to listen to, okay, Abraham or Moses or Joshua. We can look at our own experience, where we found ourselves in situations that suddenly an angel came, although we're not so open to admit that, right? An angel spoke to me, an angel did this. I had an experience I will share with you. It's probably the second time I'm sharing this, but this was when I first started in spirituality, probably 1978, 1979. I was driving up in Northern California. There was a big retreat up there. I'm in Northern California. I'm coming back at night, back to the South Bay, LA County. And of course, it's late at night. And I'm driving, and I take, if you're familiar, the 5 goes through, like empty place, and it's at night. And all of a sudden I fall asleep. The statute of limitations is up, so I can tell you I was doing about 100 miles an hour. How do I know? This I have to give a little plug here, because I just bought a new car, had a digital dash, and I wanted to see it hit 100. So I'm driving 100, and I fall asleep. Now, whether you want to say it was an angel, whatever it was, something woke me up just in time to see in my headlights some guy behind his car pushing his car on the road. Don't ask me how, but somehow something took hold of that steering wheel like this. The car spun, stopped, didn't roll over. Took me a little bit to get that heart slowing down. And you'd think, right? You'd think what? What should you see on the road? The guy pushing his car. Something, come help, come look. I got out of the car and guess what? There was nobody there. Nobody there. I don't consider myself better or different than any other person in the world. But why I'm sharing that with you, like we're saying, we have to open our heart. We have to open our soul to the possibilities. Open our mind that these things can happen and we are destined to have them. We are destined for these things. It should be commonplace. The Kabbalists write, in the times we're living now, miracles should be commonplace. I taught in one of the classes this last week. They are. We just don't see them that way. We're caught in our five senses. Go back to your grandparents and show them this. Your cell phone, what would they say? Ho-hum? It'd be miraculous. You can speak to a disembodied voice from all over the world through this little box. Think about that. But today it's like, we do take it ho-hum. Everybody has a cell phone. Even in the poorest countries, people have a cell phone. So we just take it for granted. We don't see the miracles that are happening. And so what does that opponent, that adversary in our head do? Well, miracles don't happen. And they're certainly not going to happen to you. But we've all had them. We've all had those miracles. We just have to unleash ourselves, free ourselves from the bondage of the five senses, of the limitations of logic. Well, science one day will come up with all the answers. Why? Because look, they've come up with answers up to now. Right? Logic. But let me ask you, in the last year, really, and this is actually the toughest thing, to truly be logical, even in that sense, objective logic. If we could be objectively logical, what would we say about the potential, the possibility for humanity in the next year after watching this last year? Show me anybody who's really come along and said, here's a solution to all the world's problems. Here's a way. Science? No, for everything that science advances, unfortunately, the opponent gets people to use those advances in a negative way. No? Look what's going on around the world. Everybody hacking everybody else. So a computer, the internet, could be a good thing. We're using it now in a very proactive, spiritual way. We teach classes, thousands of people all over the world, from all over the world watching at the same time. And yet you have people misusing it. So where's our hope? Let's be objective. There's no hope. So what do the Kabbalists teach us? And this is what I wanted to get to. If we want to get to that help from above, then we need to find ways and means to access the light from above. Because if it were really, as the traditional people say, if it was really up to God, then why would Adam and Eve have been able to make their mistake? Yeah, but if everything were up to God, they wouldn't have had free will to make the mistake in the first place. So let's not look for God in the traditional way to come down and fix the world. Because as the Kabbalists teach us, from God's point of view, the world is only perfect and people are only perfect. Our job is to start seeing greater and greater perfection. Moses. Why does it say Moses was equal to every human being on earth? Because he was sensitive to every person on earth. He accessed through his soul and his heart of light, the heart and soul of every person on earth. And that's why he was so driven to bring people out of bondage, called Egypt, into the bliss of the Garden of Eden, called the Promised Land. Do you want Promised Land? We really have to start thinking this way. Do we want the Promised Land? What is our eternal bliss? What does it look like? So then to get that help from above, we learn from Kabbalah 1. You all know it. I can already hear your thoughts going, yes, we know what the solution is. Karen said it. Thank you, Karen. Oh, now I got to find the page. Okay. If we want to go to our next level, great. No, I'm not going to be able to find it. Okay. Yes, I know, but I don't want it to take the whole. Have certainty. Find your way to the next level, right? The light is ever present for us. If a person is stuck or tied to something, unable to let go, it is up to the individual to look inside and figure out what the next step needs to be. So we have to go outside what we're used to doing, what we feel is usual, comfortable, normal, acceptable, tolerable. We have to go outside that. We have to stretch the extra mile, as people say. We have to be able to share forgiveness with a person yesterday we didn't want to forgive. We have to be more grateful for the things in our life in the midst of difficult situations. That's going the extra mile. And that's the only way, and we believe the only way, that a person can draw that help from above to go from whatever level we are now to our next level. So the Kabbalists teach again, 1 + 1 is 3. Now I think you're getting the idea. If we stick to the 1 + 1 is 2, yeah, it's logical, sensible. And again, I'm not telling you to go to a store and say 1 and 1 is 3, give me 3, or let me give you 3, etc. But we want to understand the exponential power that's available to us, accessible to us, by reaching into our soul and getting that help from above. And that's why they say 1 and 1 is 3, 1 and 1 is 20, 1 and 1 is 50. What does the Bible say? When you're connected to the Creator, and I'm paraphrasing, when you're connected to the Creator, then the 10 will be able to chase away the 100. The 100 will be able to chase away the 10,000s of enemies. There's an exponential power to it. One person can do the work of many, many, many people, especially when we're connected to the light of the Creator. That's what's called the critical mass. And that's why I want to spend a minute here as we're closing on this idea. What is a critical mass? So think about it in your life. It's often usually in a negative way. What is a critical mass? You ever been in a difficult situation? Trouble in a business, trouble in a relationship. But you keep tolerating misbehavior, tolerating dissatisfaction, tolerating something because, as Karen said, it's comfortable. Yes or no? Yes or no? Well, I'm looking for these people out here. So what happens? What is that critical mass? The last straw. You ever heard that term? That was the last straw that broke the camel's back. What does that mean? Yes, you were able to accept up to a certain point. And then that last thing, that one last thing, that was it. All bets are off. You're willing to go outside your comfort zone. You're willing to leave the job, leave the relationship, speak up, say, do, whatever it is that you weren't willing to up to that point. So there is, as the Kabbalists call it, critical mass of light. There's darkness in the cosmos. There's darkness in the world. Yes or yes? Look at it. Look, especially this last year, become more intense, more clear to see. There's darkness out there, but we know darkness is limited, light is infinite. Darkness is limited, the light is infinite. So the critical mass, according to the Kabbalah center, what the mission of the center is to reveal a critical mass of light, if you will, that last piece of light that will break the back of our opponent, that spiritual parasite in our head that's tempting us, taunting us, cajoling us to just limit ourselves, judge other people, create fragmentation and separation. I mean, if you listen to things we've heard for hundreds of years, divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. Yes, military terms. Divide the enemy's troops and you can conquer them. Hello? That opponent called Satan in our head has been dividing and conquering. Divide us from our soul so we don't feel, see, envision, experience, taste our true potential. Divide and conquer. The nasty person over there. Find someone to blame for your troubles in life. Divide and conquer. Divide humanity by religion, race, color, nationality, economics, politics, whatever. Divide and conquer. The longer we wait to reveal the critical mass, you tell me, what's been going on the last 10, 15 years? Greater joy, happiness? No. But at the same time, think, every time, go back to your relationship. You had a terrible relationship, right? It was great in the beginning, then it was terrible. I mean, really bad and awful. While you were still tolerating the awful, tell me it's not true that somewhere in your mind you are off in Hawaii with somebody else. Maybe not even someone you know, just someone you thought up that was better than the situation you were in. You're in a terrible job. You can't stand your job, but you're tolerating it because it at least gives you some money. It pays the bills, whatever. But tell me while you're at work, you're not off in your mind somewhere else, imagining something else. So we don't want to wait until that last straw. In the physical world, we want to decide now. Enough is enough is enough is enough. Look around the world. People are getting together. I put on Facebook. I put on Messenger. Maybe I have to put it on the Facebook. Go look around. You know, what do we get inundated with? All the bad news, bad things happening, all the fighting and the destruction and the violence and the chaos. But if you start looking, really, this shows you where the limitation of logic. Logic is stupid. Okay, please take that in the right way. Because like this, you watch the news and then suddenly what happens? Well, logic says that, all the religion, all the colors, all the races, all the nationality, all the politics, they got to be like that. You follow? All of them are the same. And they're looking at us and saying, well, all of them are the same. Seems to be logical, but no, let's make spiritual logic. Out of all the bad people in the world, take them all and you put them all together. Do you really believe it's over 50% of the world's population? No. But that's what that opponent makes us believe. Oh, all the world is bad. All of those people are bad. No, we've come now to realize, look what's going on. Yes, bad stuff in the world this last year. But if you really start looking into it, and sadly, the media doesn't seem to portray that side of things so much. You have to really dig. The guy, one thing I just saw someone sent me, as I sent them, a judge, I forget where he was, right? The municipal judge. A veteran came. Okay, veterans, you open your heart, you feel for them, what they had to go through. So this veteran had, I get the initials, PTSD, right? Okay, so he was in trouble. He was on probation for alcohol abuse or whatever, and he comes and he looks at the judge looks at him and said, well, did you break your probation? And he says, yes, he did. He says, well, I have no choice. Yes, you're a veteran and this, and my heart goes out to you, but the law is the law, and I have to give you, 24 hours in jail. What did the judge do? He spent the night in jail with a veteran. He said, I have to follow the law. I have to be just that way, but I'm also human. So he spent the time with him because he knew, especially a veteran with all that he was going through, to be confined like that. So he spent the night in jail with him. Some kid, another one, somebody sent me. Some kid, he had a bicycle, no brakes. He was playing, I'm sure, with his friend, riding bikes. A little kid, 8, 9, 10 years old. He couldn't stop. I guess the car was backing out, whatever, and he banged into the car, dented the car. So what happened? The next day, the owner of the car came to buy him a brand new bicycle. Those are the things that we need to make the critical mass of. Those are the things that somebody, even unconsciously, reached into their heart and soul and felt the pain of the other person. The whole beauty of the Kabbalah centers to teach us, remind us, over and over and over again, we can do that same thing. We can be like a Moses. We can be like these great spiritual leaders. Their heart was open and therefore interconnected with every person on earth. Let's just start to feel not only our own discomfort, but let's start feeling the discomfort of people around us. Let's start being more aware and noticing what other people are going through. Let's listen to the news, if you're listening to the news, but not look at it for blame or anger or judgment. Let's look at it to see who's suffering where and how can we alleviate that suffering. Because you and I, if you're here watching or you're here in the center, you know the power of the Zohar. You know what the Zohar says of itself. You know your own personal miracles. You know the miracles that have happened around the world. Because the Zohar is pure, infinite light. It accesses from the endless world, and it just shines that light into this world. The more we have around, the faster the darkness goes away. So we have our critical mass individually. We can be scanning from the Zohar. We can be using the Zohar. We can also create collectively the critical mass. That's the mission of the center. Spread so much light, spread so many Zohar, that the light will be the majority. And as we're saying today, 1 and 1 is 3, 5, 10, 100, or 1,000. It doesn't take the majority of people on the planet to remove pain, suffering, and death. It just takes a small group that are bonded together, heart and soul, with the one mission of bringing so much light to the world that the darkness, that angel of death, will disappear, and the light will be the majority in the cosmos. What do we need to do? And this is a big shift for me, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. We have to turn our thoughts around. We have to start envisioning the end of pain, suffering, and death. Let's start envisioning. Open your heart and let that which you feel in your heart, what your Garden of Eden looks like, what your heaven on earth looks like, let that be at the forefront of your mind. You know how people put on their refrigerator their goals? They put the house they want, they put, the image they want, losing 5 pounds or whatever it is, but they put something as what? They don't put it out of fear. Fear of not getting that house, fear of not losing the weight, fear of not making the money. No, they put it there as a goal, a way to motivate themselves, to push themselves to achieve whatever their goal is. Well, hello, yes, hello out there. Let's start waking up. Let's have a vision. If you want to create a physical thing like that, do it. But at least let's start envisioning every day, sometime in the morning, what does your Garden of Eden look like? What does your heaven on earth look like? And then awaken and strengthen the desire for that. Because whatever your vision, whatever our vision is now, God has already given us 1,000 times more than that. We can't even fathom what eternal bliss looks like. That's been given to us already. So let's work from our level now. Let's work. Okay, whatever your vision of bliss is, don't say not them and not that job and not this thing. No, let's see what it looks like. People happy. See yourself in a job joyous, peaceful, serene, having fun with the people around you, enjoying it, the day going by in 2 seconds. Things like that, relationships, friends, romantic, whatever, associate, just joy, everybody smiling, joking, happy, sharing with each other, willing to help the other person more than they're helping themselves. Let's start envisioning that. And as we do that, what will happen automatically? You start to feel it. The more you envision it, the more you see it, the more you really start working towards it, the more you'll feel it, the more excited you'll be there, the faster you'll start running. So as Rav Ashag reminds us, and I believe it's a verse in one of the prophets, don't quote me, but I think it's Jeremiah. He says, God says, I will hasten it in its time. Logic says that's contrary. Contradict. What do you mean hasten it? Hasten it means speed it up. What do you mean speed it up? But in its time. So the Kabbalists explain, like now you can understand a little more. There is a time limit to the end of pain, suffering, and death. But that may be hundreds of years in the future. Or we can hasten it. We can speed it up. We have free will. We have the technology. We have the tools. We can speed up, revealing the critical mass of light to hasten, to speed up our entrance or our re-entry into the Garden of Eden. So it's in our hands, friends. It's up to you and me. If you're watching this, you're in the Kabbalah Center, it's in our hands. We are that critical mass of people. We are. We just need to start accessing more of our soul's light and bring it into revelation. And don't forget, at the same time that you're revealing light for others, you're also revealing light for you. Spiritually, everything is win-win. So remember, the person that you're forgiving that you didn't want to forgive, that you're sending them the light of forgiveness, and again, you don't have to be physically around them, send them the light of forgiveness. Send them the light of tolerance. Send them the light of compassion. Send them the light of gratitude or happiness for their good. Every person that you send light to in that extended, effort-filled way, uncomfortable, transformational way, you have enlisted their soul's energy in your army of the light. Shall I repeat that? You send light to somebody. Forgive that person, kind to that person, more generous, whatever it is. When you're sending light to reach out to the soul of another person, you have now enlisted them. You have added them to your spiritual army of light. So now when you're facing your opponent, think about it. Every day you're adding more and more soldiers to be able to defeat your opponent. So it's not about them. Don't let the opponent tell you. But if you're forgiving to them, or you're kind to them, or you're compassionate to them, they'll walk all over you. You're a loser. You're weak. You're wimpy. All that stuff. No, the opposite. The more people that you enlist in your army on a soul level, the more power and the more strength you have to defeat your opponent, to overcome the challenge of the day. Or as we say now, to do the pause when you're being triggered. To give ourselves the opportunity to be objective. To think spiritually, consciously. And then to take those actions. So today is the day. 1, open your heart to feel other people. 2, envision, feel, taste your Garden of Eden. Realize it's only just around the corner. Strengthen your desire for that Garden of Eden and that complete eternal bliss. And then go out with that energy, with that strength, with that enthusiasm, and go out and share in some way, shape, or form with somebody that you weren't going to yesterday. And as Karen said, that will take you not only to your next level, not only enlist more people in your spiritual army against your opponent, but it will also create on a collective level more power, more strength, more soldiers in the united army against the opponent, the angel of death. And then it will be, as the prophet says, we can hasten in our time the end of all pain, suffering, and death. God bless. Thank you, thank you. So now I'd like to just take our moment to do our offering, bless our offering. And again, thank you for all your support. We appreciate it. It helps us speed up the process, right? Speeding up the process is working together collectively. And remember, we have now tens of thousands of people around the world learning in the center, etc. So like the Rav and Karen used to say, it only takes one Zohar to bring the end of pain, suffering, and death. So you say, wow, only one? And then they would add So if there's not the end of pain, suffering, and death, there's at least one more Zohar to go out there. Or in our case, one more person to also come and learn. So we, the few, right, can affect the many. And that's why we always take this moment, one, to appreciate what the Creator's given us, and from the center's point of view, to appreciate what you share with us, and also take this moment to bless it. That we'll do, as we said today, we'll be drawing on our higher soul, the one that sees clearly everything comes from the Creator, everything we have, everything we're capable, and also sees the benefit of sharing what the Creator gives us. Because the Creator shares, so it stays eternally bliss. If we share like the Creator, then we can also stay with eternal bliss. So those of you here, if you'll just hold your gift in your hands, those of you who are watching us online, please just join us. I've put the link so you can share whatever your gift you're offering. One is just to have gratitude and appreciation. We've just moved up to our next level of greater awareness. The light is our only source of lasting, infinite fulfillment. That the Creator has given us miracles and wonders. We have been able to access that pure and perfect light being inside of us. From this moment on, we are more determined, enthusiastic, motivated to break to our next level, to go outside of our comfort zone and share. So we inject this gift, this offering, with this light, with this love, with gratitude, with greater certainty than we had before we were here today. Greater certainty. The more we share, the more the Creator opens up the pathway for us, the more the angels work for us, the more divine inspiration we have, and the more peace, prosperity, health, and joy will return to us. With love, kindness, and joy, we send this gift out into the world to speedily, in our days, remove all chaos, all pain, all suffering, all death. And we together, we say, Amen. Thank you for joining us. Lots of love and blessing. Have an amazing week. Yes, we will be back next week. And if you have experiences you'd like to share or questions you'd like to ask, please email me, Facebook me, let me know, send me a message. So I'd love to hear your miracles. I'd love to be able to share them with others and answer your questions also. Okay? God bless. Have an amazing week.